PlayStation or Xbox. I mean, just throwing those two names out there, it's like instant debate, right?
Yeah.
You know, you go on Reddit and people are going at it. You see all the setups on TikTok, and I'm sure we've all been there, you know, late night with friends arguing about which console's the best.
Oh, yeah.
We know PC gaming has a huge following, and Nintendo's always doing its own thing. But you think about that classic rivalry over the last, 20 years?
Right.
It really has been Sony and Microsoft going head to head.
Yeah. It's been a defining element, hasn't it? Like a long-standing sports rivalry. You've got those dedicated fan bases, the iconic moments, the constant battle for the top spot. It's really made for a compelling story.
It really has. But here's the question we're diving into today. Is that so-called console war actually coming to an end?
Okay.
Because the gaming world feels like it's gone through this like massive transformation, you know, not just recently, but over the last 2 decades. How we play what we expect from games, the sheer number of ways we can game now,
It's crazy.
it's like exploded.
It really has.
Right. You've got super powerful handhelds that are actually viable now. Younger gamers are building their own PCs. The gaming landscape is like almost unrecognizable from what it was, you know, back in the day. It's gone from this like, you know, head to head to this brawling multi-front war.
Yeah, and it's not just about the different ways we play, it's the economics of it all, too.
Yeah.
The sheer scale of the gaming industry today, the financial figures are mind-blowing.
They really are. Back in 2019, the global revenue for video games was already a huge $285 billion. Fast forward to last year, 2024, and that number skyrocketed to $475 billion.
Right.
Think about that for a second. Video games are now bringing in more money than the entire worldwide movie and music industries combined. Like in 2023, movies brought in $308 billion music, $28.6 billion. And the projections suggest we could be hitting almost $700 billion by 2029.
So it's a financial powerhouse, and it's only getting bigger, and naturally that attracts attention and investment from outside of the traditional gaming world.
Oh, yeah.
We're seeing a level of integration we might not have imagined 10 years ago.
For sure. We've seen a ton of big Hollywood names jumping into games over the last 5 years. Like think Mads Mikkelsen, Keanu Reeves, John Bernthal, William Dafoe.
Wow.
All these guys have taken on some pretty big roles in these AAA games.
That's a big sign.
It shows how seriously video games are being taken now by mainstream entertainment. And it's not just individual actors. You've got major companies like Disney dropping $1.5 billion into Epic Games. That's serious money, and it says a lot about where they see the future of gaming going.
Yeah, it really does underscore how gaming has moved beyond a niche hobby. It's a central pillar of entertainment, now a crucial part of the global economy.
So with all that as our backdrop, our mission today is to really dig into what's going on with this console war right now. We're going to break down the latest data, look at the strategic moves from the big players, and try to uncover some of the surprising truths that might be hidden beneath the surface, especially when it comes to PlayStation and Xbox.
Right.
Okay, let's start unpacking this. Let's start with Xbox. They've been facing some pretty unexpected challenges.
Yeah, they have. The Xbox Series X and S were supposed to be this big upgrade, right? Offering a ton of power and new features.
Right.
But the data seems to suggest that they haven't quite landed with consumers the way many were expecting.
To put it lightly, here's a stat that just blew my mind. The Xbox One, that older console, is currently selling almost double the units of the newer Series S and X combined.
Really?
That's insane, right? You'd think the newest tech would be the one flying off the shelves.
Yeah, you'd assume so, wouldn't you?
Right.
It raises some questions about how appealing and valuable the current Xbox hardware is for gamers. Plus, you've got industry analyst Matt Piscatella suggesting this whole console generation might already be past its peak in terms of sales. If that's true, it makes the situation for Xbox even more concerning.
Totally. And the sales figures from 2024 paint a pretty stark picture. According to Statista, Xbox Series S and X combined sold less than 2.5 million units for the whole year. To compare PlayStation, the PS5 sold that same amount, 2.5 million, in just the first 3 months of 2024.
Wow.
That's a huge difference.
Yeah, a massive difference in how well they're each doing. And it's not just the sales numbers. There are also these rumors going around about how Xbox is handling physical retail.
Yeah, we've seen reports that they might be shutting down their physical retail distribution, like the whole department that gets their games into stores.
Right.
And their response to those rumors about potentially pulling out of console sales in Europe, the Middle East, and Africa, well, let's just say it wasn't exactly a denial. It makes you wonder if all this is part of some bigger strategic shift.
Yeah, it does suggest they might be pulling back from certain parts of their traditional console business.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, especially in light of what Microsoft said during the Activision Blizzard acquisition, it starts to make more sense.
Oh, yeah. During that whole regulatory process, some pretty interesting stuff came out, including a statement from Microsoft that basically said they didn't think Xbox ever really stood a chance in the console market. They said they never had a shot at winning.
Sure.
That's a pretty big admission from a company like Microsoft.
Yeah, it is. It totally changes how we view their current strategy. If they feel like they're at a fundamental disadvantage in one area, it makes sense to focus their energy somewhere else.
Yeah.
And it seems like that's exactly what they're doing with Xbox.
That focus seems to be all about Xbox Game Pass. It's no secret that they're pumping a lot of money into building that subscription service.
Yeah.
And those leaked internal documents really show how serious they are about it.
Yeah.
The estimated cost to get big games like Grand Theft Auto 5 on there, like $12 to $15 million per month, and Star Wars Jedi Survivor at a massive $300 million. It's clear they're all in on cloud gaming and subscriptions.
Yeah, what's really interesting is that they're clearly prioritizing accessibility in their service over selling consoles.
Right.
Their advertising has totally shifted to reflect that.
Yeah. Their message now is all about redefining what Xbox even is. It's not just a box under your TV anymore. It's this always accessible service with some hardware to complement it. That's a huge change in how they're presenting themselves to gamers.
Totally. It's like the physical console is becoming less important and more just a way to access their games and services. And this all ties in with those rumors we've been hearing.
About an Xbox handheld.
Exactly.
Yeah, there's been a lot of talk about that. And those leaked documents from the Activision Blizzard thing seem to back it up. They mention handheld-friendly hardware for a next-gen hybrid cloud gaming platform.
That fits right in with their whole play wherever you want, whenever you want idea. A dedicated handheld for cloud gaming would make perfect sense. And they're not just stopping at handhelds. They're going all in on mobile gaming, too.
For sure. They've announced plans to make their own mobile game store to compete with Apple and Google, and Phil Spencer himself has said that the sheer size of mobile gaming is shaping their strategy. It's pretty obvious that mobile is a big part of their plan.
Yeah, and if you put it all together, their new unofficial motto, the video game brand you can play wherever you want, wherever you are, really sums it up. They're moving beyond that traditional console box.
Okay, so it seems like Xbox is charting a new course, one that's less about beating Sony in console sales and more about becoming this ubiquitous gaming service. But what about the wider gaming world that's influencing these decisions? It's not a two-player game anymore, is it?
Definitely not. And the numbers on where people are actually playing games tell the story. In 2024, out of an estimated 3.3 billion gamers worldwide, over 1.93 billion of them are playing on mobile devices.
That's massive. And while that includes like casual games, like puzzle apps and stuff, it's clear mobile gaming has become so much more than that.
Exactly. Over the last decade, mobile gaming has rapidly become the dominant force in the whole video game market, across all demographics, but especially among younger generations. The 2024 market valuation really shows this. The total market was valued at $184.3 billion, and mobile games alone made up half of that $92.5 billion. Compare that to consoles, which brought in $50.3 billion, only about 27% of the total, and that's actually a 4% drop from 2023.
Wow.
It's clear why Microsoft is so keen on getting a bigger piece of that mobile pie.
Totally makes sense now that you put it that way. And it's not like mobile gaming's strength is a new thing, right?
Not at all. Even back in 2013, the mobile gaming market in Asia was already way bigger than in the West. It was a whopping 759% larger in South Korea and 280% larger in China. This trend's been building for a while.
Wow.
And it's actually pretty fascinating to look back at the top grossing games of the 2010s.
Yeah.
You might think it was all those console and PC blockbusters, right?
I mean, I would have thought so.
But actually 5 of the highest grossing games of that decade were primarily mobile games. Crossfire, Monster Strike, Honor of Kings, Puzzle and Dragon, and Clash of Clans. You might not recognize them if you're mainly a console gamer, but their impact has been huge.
That really highlights how different these gaming ecosystems are. And while mobile is clearly this giant PC gaming, has also had some interesting changes, hasn't it?
It has. While it hasn't grown as explosively as mobile, the PC gaming market has steadily increased its player base year after year since 2014, going from 1.31 billion to 1.86 billion in 2024. And that includes a jump of 200 million players in 2020, probably because of the pandemic and more people staying at home.
Yeah.
Also, there's this growing level of technical knowledge among PC gamers. They're more likely to understand the hardware, the optimization, building their own setups.
Makes sense. The barrier to entry for PC gaming can be a little higher,
Yeah.
more technical stuff to consider. So where does that put PC in terms of its overall market share?
Well, in 2024, PC gaming reached $41.5 billion globally. So while more people are playing, it's still behind consoles in terms of revenue, although that gap is shrinking.
Right, because you said earlier that in 2016, the difference between consoles and PCs was only $2.3 billion, but by 2024, it was $9 billion. So even with more players and their tech savviness, PC isn't overtaking consoles anytime soon. That's interesting for Xbox, though, since they're so big on Windows PCs.
It is. Their consoles might be struggling, but their games and services have this built-in audience on PC that's only getting bigger. But let's circle back to the console world for a minute. We need to talk about where PlayStation fits into all of this.
Right. So while Xbox seems to be switching gears, how Sony handling all these changes, the latest numbers suggest they're in a pretty good spot.
They are. Sony's most recent earnings report showed that they've sold 65 million PlayStation 5 consoles. That's a huge lead compared to Xbox Series X and S combined sales, which are at 29.7 million. Basically, for every one Xbox Series console sold, there are about 5 PS5s out there.
That's domination.
Yeah, it's a pretty significant market share.
And it's not just about how many consoles they're selling, their gaming division is making bank too.
Oh, yeah. Sony's Game and Network Services division saw a 12.3% boost in profits, which they partly attributed to strong sales of their own games, the first-party titles. They specifically mentioned Astrobot, which sold 1.5 million copies in less than 2 months. That shows people are hungry for those PlayStation exclusives.
And if we look ahead, the projections suggest that PlayStation's success in the console market is going to continue.
Ampere Analysis estimates that Sony will sell 106.9 million PS5s by 2029. And if you compare that to leaked Microsoft projections, which put Xbox Series X and S sales at around 56 to 59 million by 2027, that difference in market share is still huge.
So based on all that, it's hard to argue that PlayStation isn't the king of consoles right now. And with Phil Spencer from Xbox saying they have no red lines and are open to putting Xbox games, even big ones like Halo, on PlayStation and Switch, it's almost like they're conceding that PlayStation's the leader.
It's a valid interpretation for sure. However, while the PS5 is definitely doing well, it does have some interesting aspects and potential weaknesses.
Oh, really? I mean, from the outside, it looks like smooth sailing for Sony. What kind of challenges are they facing?
Well, even though the PS5's been out for a while, a surprising number of PlayStation users, about 50%, are still mainly playing on their PS4s. This suggests that a lot of their player base hasn't made the jump to the new hardware.
That is surprising. Why do you think that is? Could it be a lack of really compelling PS5-only games?
Now, this seems to be a big part of it. If you look at the top 20 best-selling games in the US in 2024, only one was a true PS5 exclusive. Marvel's Spider-Man 2, and it was number 19. Helldivers 2 was a big hit and number 3, but that was available on PC from the start. If you take out remasters and enhanced PS4 games, there are only about 15 actual PS5 exclusives. So the question is that enough to convince people to spend money on a new console?
That's a fair point. If there aren't enough next-gen exclusive experiences, the incentive to upgrade isn't as strong. And then there's the whole PS5 Pro situation.
Right. The PS5 Pro at $700 wasn't exactly met with open arms. A lot of reviewers and gamers felt like the upgrade was too soon, especially since the games they were using to show it off were basically just slightly better versions of older games. The negative feedback from online polls was pretty overwhelming.
So it seems like the PS5 is selling well, but it might not be that definitive must-have console for everyone yet, at least not yet.
Exactly. But that could all change with Grand Theft Auto 6. That game is going to be huge, a guaranteed system seller. And it could be the first real chance for the PS5 to show off what it can really do and convince those holdouts to finally upgrade.
Right.
It could be the game that this generation's been waiting for.
So if we zoom out and look at everything, where does all this leave the traditional console war? It seems like those clear lines we used to see have gotten really blurry.
Definitely. It's like Microsoft might have realized that trying to beat Sony at their own game wasn't the best strategy in the long run. And for Sony, while their new console is doing well, maybe it hasn't made that revolutionary leap forward that truly defines a new generation for everyone. In a way, the real winners here might be the people who are choosing to play outside of that two-console box.
That's an interesting take. You're saying the focus is shifting to people who mostly game on PC or mobile.
Exactly. And we're seeing more and more evidence of these big mobile gaming companies pushing into the console and PC space. Like there are reports that Tencent, which is huge in mobile, is trying to buy Ubisoft after already buying Suno Group in 2021.
Wow.
Mobile gaming is becoming a key part of the strategy for these big companies.
It's like a complete flip from what we might have predicted a few years ago.
Yeah, it really is.
Mhm.
Think about this. Take-Two Interactive, which owns Rockstar Games, said that around 10% of the entire world's population plays games from their mobile subsidiary Zynga every month.
Wow.
That means someone playing a simple game on their phone might be indirectly helping to fund the development of these massive console games like Grand Theft Auto 6.
Really?
That's a connection that wouldn't have been clear even 5 years ago, but it shows how interconnected the video game market is now.
That's mind-blowing. So what does all this mean for the future of gaming?
It tells me that the next 5 years of gaming are going to be less about who has the most powerful console in your living room and more about the growth of cloud gaming servers and how they can let you play games seamlessly across all your devices. The console war, as we've known it for the past 2 decades, seems to be fading away, but the mobile gaming war and all the partnerships and rivalries that are going to come from these changes, that's just getting started.
So to sum it up for you, our listener Xbox seems to be moving away from just consoles and going for a more service-based model. Mobile gaming is undeniably huge and only getting bigger, and it's affecting the entire industry. PlayStation is currently winning in console sales, but they might need more exclusive games to really solidify the PS5 as a must-have. And over all of this is the rise of cloud gaming. So what are your thoughts? Did any of that surprise you?
It really makes you think about what it'll mean to be a gamer in the next 10 years. With all these lines blurring between platforms and ways to play games, will dedicated consoles even be necessary for most people? It's something to consider. How will your own gaming habits change in this increasingly diverse world of games?
For sure. We encourage you to dive deeper into these topics on your own. Check out the different cloud gaming services, take a look at the financial reports of the big game companies, or see what's happening in the mobile gaming world. Think of this as just the starting point for your own deep dive into the future of gaming. Thanks for joining us for this exploration, and we can't wait for our next insightful journey together.
See you next time.